Listen closely, for this message is one that transcends the fleeting opinions of society, and it digs into the heart of the matter, the very essence of how God has created men and women. This is not about what is easy to hear. It's not about playing to the soft desires and comfortable emotions that we so often crave. No, this is about truth that is unbending and uncompromising. Let me tell you this, when it comes to men, we have to start with the hard realities of the human heart. Do not be deceived by the masks we wear, the facades we put on, or the words we speak. Beneath all that, in the depths of every man's soul, there is something you don't understand, and it's not just one thing, but 5 things that remain hidden to you. These things are not trivial or insignificant. They are part of the foundation of who we are as men, and to understand them is to understand how to walk in the reality of our relationships. First, let me be clear about one thing: men are not simply products of their culture. The way we act, the way we think, and the way we respond to the world around us is not simply the result of upbringing or the influence of peers. God has created us, each man uniquely, with specific roles, duties, and responsibilities in his sovereign design. We are not robots or passive bystanders in this world. We have been created with a purpose, and one of the most crucial aspects of this purpose is how we interact with you, the women in our lives. But here's where things get murky, and many of you women fail to understand. Men are not emotional in the way you are emotional. The first thing you need to know is that men do not process the world through emotions first. You see, in your mind, the emotional responses are often the starting point for everything. Your feelings shape your perception, your decisions, and your actions. You cry, you rejoice, you empathize, and everything revolves around those feelings, doesn't it? But men, oh, how we are different. We do not work that way. You see, we don't approach the world with a swirling sea of emotions to guide us. We look at the world with a sense of duty, responsibility, and logic. Our minds work first. We analyze, we dissect, we strategize, and then maybe if the situation warrants it, we allow emotions to enter the equation. This doesn't mean men are cold, unfeeling creatures. Far from it, we feel deeply. But our feelings do not control us. They do not drive us in the way that they often drive you. And here's where the misunderstanding comes in. You want us to respond the way you do emotionally in the moment. But we do not do that. We might not express ourselves immediately, and this is not because we don't care. It's because we are thinking. We are processing. We are figuring out how to solve the problem. But you women often feel neglected, as if we don't care, when in fact we care deeply. We just express it in a different way. The second thing you don't understand is that men have a deep God-given need for respect. There is something ingrained in us by our Creator that longs for respect from others, particularly from those closest to us. This is not some fragile, insecure need for praise. It is a foundational part of what it means to be a man. Men were made to lead, to protect, to provide, to take responsibility. These are the pillars of who we are as men. And when you do not respect us, when you belittle us, when you tear us down with your words or actions, you're not just hurting us in a superficial way, you are attacking the very core of our identity. It's so easy for you to forget this, isn't it? It's easy to think that love is the only thing that matters. After all, love is the language of the heart. But understand this, the love a man has for you is often wrapped up in a deep desire for respect. We will go to great lengths to provide, to protect, to serve, but if you do not respect us, it is as if the foundation of everything we do has been shaken. Respect is not optional. It is necessary for a man to thrive in his relationship with you. And if you do not give it, you will see the very soul of the man you love begin to wither. Third, men are deeply driven by purpose and vision. A man who does not have a sense of purpose is a man who is lost. You must understand this. God has created men to pursue something. We are not meant to sit idly by, wandering through life with no direction. We were made to work, to build, to grow. We were made to lead, not just in the home, but in the world. And when we do not have a clear vision of where we are going, when we do not have a sense of purpose in our lives, we begin to crumble from the inside. But too often you fail to see this. You fail to see the silent war raging within us. You expect us to be content with the mundane things of this world, the trivial pursuits, the distractions that fill the day. But deep down, in the heart of every man is a cry for meaning, for significance. We want to know that what we are doing matters. We want to know that our efforts are not in vain. When you challenge us, when you question our decisions without understanding the vision we are carrying, you challenge our very identity. We long for you to come alongside us to help us fulfill that vision, to partner with us in the great work that God has called us to. The fourth thing you need to understand is this: men are often silent about their struggles. Yes, we have struggles. We face battles that you may never see. These battles may not be visible, but they are real. They are spiritual. They are emotional. They are mental. But for the most part, you won't hear us talk about them. Why? Because we have been taught by the world and by our Creator that men should be strong. Men should not burden others with their problems. Men should not complain. It's a sad reality, but it's true. We don't open up easily, and we don't expect you to fix us. We simply want you to understand that sometimes the silence we exhibit is not a sign of neglect or indifference. It's a sign of a deep struggle that we are fighting through. And yes, sometimes we need your help, but often we need your support in silence. We need you to stand by us, not demanding that we constantly share everything that's on our hearts, but trusting that we are fighting the good fight. We don't want to drag you into our struggles, but we need you to understand that we are facing battles we are called to fight, and battles that shape us into the men we are meant to be. Finally, men desire intimacy in a way you may not fully grasp. Intimacy is not just about physical connection, it's about emotional, spiritual, and relational unity. But there is something in us, something deep within our nature, that craves a form of intimacy that is profound, that is pure, that is deep. And this intimacy is often misunderstood by women. You see, women often equate intimacy with talking, with sharing, with connection on an emotional level. But men desire intimacy differently. For us, intimacy often comes through action, through being together, through shared purpose, and yes, sometimes through physical closeness. But this is not some shallow desire. It is a deep yearning to connect with you on a level that transcends the superficial. We want to know that we are not alone in this world. We want to know that the one we have chosen to walk beside us is truly with us in every sense, heart, mind, body, and soul. And when we don't feel that intimacy, when we feel disconnected, we begin to drift, we begin to withdraw. But if you understand this truth, you can help us bridge the gap. You can be the one who draws us close, who nurtures that intimacy, who makes us feel not just like a companion, but like a partner in the deepest sense. Do not be fooled by the world's lies. Do not let the culture tell you that men are one thing when in reality they are something far more complex. If you understand these 5 truths, if you understand the way God has made men, the deep struggles we face, and the unique ways we are called to lead and love, you will begin to see us as we truly are. You will begin to understand not just our actions, but the heart behind them. And when you understand this, you will know how to love us, respect us, and walk with us in the way that God intended. But this isn't just about what you need to do. It's about what you need to be. Be a woman who understands these truths. Be a woman who prays for the strength to respect, to encourage, to support. Be a woman who looks at your husband, your father, your brother, your son, and sees them for who they truly are, men created in the image of God, men with purpose, with struggles, with dreams, with hopes. And when you see them through that lens, you will understand them in a way that the world cannot. And in that understanding, you will discover a love that is real, that is deep, that is founded on the truth of who God made us all to be. Men often prioritize logic, duty, and purpose, processing situations through a lens of responsibility before emotions. This can create misunderstandings, as women may desire emotional expression and connection immediately, whereas men take time to process and may express care in different, less immediate ways. Men have an intrinsic need for respect and a desire for intimate connection, not just emotionally, but through shared purpose, action, and physical closeness. Respect is foundational to a man's sense of identity and strength. And understanding this need is essential for women to build deeper, more supportive relationships with men. There is something fundamental that many fail to grasp about the way men and women interact with the world, especially when it comes to emotions and how they process the circumstances around them. It's not just a matter of personality differences or social conditioning. It is something much deeper, rooted in the way God has designed men and women. At the core of this difference lies how we as men and women approach and experience our emotions and how those emotions shape our actions. Understanding this distinction is vital not only for self-awareness, but also for cultivating better relationships both within the home and beyond. From the moment a man and a woman are born, they begin to experience the world differently. These differences are not just a result of society's expectations or the roles that culture imposes upon them. They are rooted in the unique way that God has created them, male and female. These differences aren't simply incidental. They are vital for understanding the intricate web of relationships that we as human beings navigate in this world. To begin with, one of the most significant ways in which men and women process emotions is through the framework of their respective roles. For men, the foundational role given by God is one of leadership, responsibility, and provision. This role is ingrained into the very fabric of his being. Men are wired to think about problems and challenges, not just through the lens of how it makes them feel, but through the lens of how they can solve, fix, or provide for the issue at hand. Men do not come to situations primarily through an emotional perspective. They come with a desire to handle things. This is evident even from a young age, when boys, often without any conscious intent, tend to gravitate towards action, solutions, and striving to control or master their environment. This can be misunderstood by women as a lack of care or emotional distance, but in reality, it's an expression of how men are wired to engage with the world. The primary goal for a man in a given situation is often to take charge. He is often thinking about what he can do to resolve an issue. His mind quickly turns toward questions of action. What steps can I take? What tools do I need? Who needs to be involved? What solutions can I provide? This mindset is not born out of a desire to disregard emotions, but rather from the reality that a man's brain is often oriented toward problem solving. This way of thinking means that when faced with emotional challenges or relational issues, a man may initially respond in a way that appears detached or analytical. Instead of diving directly into feelings, he may ask what needs to be done. His focus is on the outcome, not necessarily on the emotional expression of the moment. Women, on the other hand, process emotions very differently. From a young age, girls are often encouraged to express themselves emotionally. They are taught to connect, to reflect, and to share how they feel. These behaviors are nurtured through family interactions, peer relationships, and the general expectations of society. In this way, women's emotional responses are often more instinctive. They do not just consider the facts of a situation, they feel them deeply. Where a man might see an issue and look for a way to solve it, a woman might see the same issue and first feel the emotional weight of it. Her first response may be one of empathy, of understanding how the situation affects her, how it affects others, and what emotional impact it has on the overall picture. This difference in emotional processing can create a chasm between men and women when they try to interact and understand each other. Women often expect men to respond with emotional immediacy, but men do not process their emotions the same way. A woman might expect that if a situation is emotionally charged, the man will respond in kind by showing empathy and immediately engaging with her emotions. Yet for the man, the emotional response may come only after he has identified the problem and sought a solution. In a sense, a woman is looking for emotional closeness, whereas a man is often looking for clarity and action. When that difference isn't understood, it can lead to feelings of frustration on both sides. The woman may feel neglected or unloved because her emotional needs are not being met in the way she expects, while the man may feel confused or even overwhelmed because he perceives the emotional engagement as a barrier to finding a solution. This distinction between the way men and women process emotions is not just about personality differences, it is woven into the very essence of who they are. Men are by nature action-oriented, and they are wired to approach the world with a mindset of duty. Their emotions are often secondary to their sense of responsibility, to the weight of what they feel they must do to provide, protect, and lead. A man's value is often tied to what he can achieve, what he can accomplish, and how well he meets the expectations placed on him. When emotions enter the picture, they are often approached as something to be managed rather than something to be expressed freely. Men may feel emotions just as deeply as women, but they are less likely to display them openly or allow those emotions to govern their decisions. For many men, emotions are seen as something that could potentially undermine their ability to act. They would rather focus on the concrete, on the tangible, and on the practical steps that can be taken to address a problem. This inclination toward action is not an inherent flaw, nor is it a sign of emotional insensitivity. Rather, it reflects how God has designed men to bear the weight of responsibility. A man's mind is designed to focus on tasks, on challenges, on goals. When faced with a personal crisis or relationship problem, a man may retreat into this mindset because, in his view, he needs to fix what is broken before he can emotionally engage. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that his caring often manifests through action rather than emotional engagement. But here's the issue: women often experience the world differently. They process through feeling first, and that is not something to be dismissed. Emotions for women are deeply connected to relationships and the way they experience the world around them. This emotional wiring is not a weakness, but a strength. Women are often far more relationally attuned and sensitive to the nuances of the people around them. Their emotional intelligence is high because it is nurtured and connected to their sense of belonging, connection, and relational harmony. Women are often able to navigate the emotional currents of their environment with greater ease than men, and this enables them to empathize, to comfort, and to bond on a deeply relational level. However, this difference can create tension when women expect men to meet their emotional needs in the same way they themselves would respond. Women tend to expect that when they share their feelings or problems, the response will be immediate emotional engagement and reassurance. But the way men process emotions can seem distant and unresponsive to them. A woman may feel that the man is emotionally distant, uncaring, or unavailable simply because he is not addressing the emotions as directly as she would. What she doesn't see, however, is that he is engaged in the process of figuring out how to solve the problem in a way that will ensure the best outcome, not just for himself, but for her as well. This disparity can be a significant source of frustration in relationships, especially when it comes to issues of emotional intimacy. A woman might interpret a man's silence or lack of emotional expression as a sign that he doesn't care, but for him, the silence could be a moment of reflection, a time when he is processing and formulating a solution to the problem. The tension arises because both are approaching the same issue from fundamentally different emotional vantage points. But the root of these differences is not merely personal preference, it is part of how God designed men and women to complement each other. Men and women were meant to bring different strengths into the relationship. Where a woman is deeply connected to her emotions and intuitive understanding of relational dynamics, a man is designed to bring clarity, order, and a sense of responsibility. Each has something vital to offer, and understanding the way the other processes emotions and approaches problems is essential for mutual respect and harmony. The emotional journey of men and women, though vastly different, is meant to be reconciled in the union of marriage and relationships. Instead of seeing these differences as points of contention, they must be seen as opportunities for growth. The woman can learn to appreciate the way the man takes time to process and act. The man can learn to be more attuned to the emotional world of the woman, realizing that sometimes her needs are not for solutions, but for presence, understanding, and empathy. Neither is wrong, they are simply different, and it is in the acceptance and understanding of these differences that men and women can learn to walk together in deeper harmony and respect. In the end, it's crucial to realize that these differences in emotional processing are not weaknesses to be fixed, nor should they be a source of frustration or conflict. They are opportunities for men and women to build one another up in the ways that God intended. When a man leads with understanding, when he listens to his wife or partner with empathy and concern, and when a woman respects the quiet, thoughtful approach of the man who loves her, both grow in love and understanding. It is in these moments of challenge and tension that the deeper truths of the relationship can be forged and the foundation for a lasting, meaningful partnership can be established. In this understanding of one another, we begin to see the richness and beauty of the way God designed us, not to be the same, but to complement each other, to fill in the gaps, and to carry one another through this life with grace and compassion. There is a truth that many fail to recognize, and it is a truth that lies at the core of how men operate, not only in their relationships, but in their entire identity. Men have a deep, God-given need for respect. It's not just a passing desire or a trivial aspect of their character. It is an inherent and foundational need that shapes how they view themselves, their roles in the world, and their relationships. This need for respect is one of the most misunderstood and underestimated aspects of what it means to be a man, and it is crucial to understand if we are to navigate relationships with true depth and authenticity. In the world we live in, there is often a tendency to overlook the fact that men and women are designed differently, not just in how they interact with the world, but in what they need most deeply from their relationships. For men, respect is not just something they want, it is something they require to feel valued, to feel understood, and to feel connected. It is a need that defines their sense of worth and directs much of their behavior. In fact, this need for respect is so deeply ingrained in their nature that without it, a man's soul begins to wither, his confidence falters, and his sense of purpose is diminished. Men thrive when they feel respected, and when that respect is absent, they feel lost. From a young age, a man is often taught to prove himself through his actions. Whether it is excelling in sports, academics, or social situations, the value of a man is often measured by what he achieves. This constant drive for achievement is not simply because men are driven by pride or selfish ambition. It is because men are wired to find their identity in what they do, in the role they play in the world. And for them, that role is built on respect. They are hardwired to seek recognition and validation not because they desire to be elevated above others, but because they need to know that what they do has value, that their efforts are not in vain. Respect for a man is often seen in the way others acknowledge his efforts, his strength, his contributions. The absence of respect can be felt deeply, especially in relationships where a man invests his time, his energy, and his heart. When a woman does not respect him, when her words, her actions, or her attitude belittle him, he does not just feel rejected. He feels like his very worth is being questioned. The respect he longs for is not just admiration. It is the recognition of his intrinsic value as a person and as a man. It's an acknowledgement that he has worth and significance not because of what he has done, but because of who he is. Unfortunately, in today's world, there is often a tendency to diminish the importance of respect in relationships, particularly within the context of marriage or long-term partnerships. Too often, men are told that what they need most is love or affection. And while those are important, they cannot be fully realized without respect. Love without respect becomes superficial, it becomes mere sentimentality. It lacks the foundation upon which true connection and intimacy can be built. A man who is loved but not respected will eventually feel as though he is taken for granted, that his efforts are overlooked, and that his role is undervalued. And while he may continue to show affection and commitment, something inside him will begin to erode. His spirit will be drained, and the very love that was once so vibrant may begin to flicker. The second equally important component that a man longs for in a relationship is intimacy. But not just any kind of intimacy, true, deep emotional and relational intimacy. Men need intimacy in a way that is often misunderstood. And the reason for this is that intimacy for a man is not just about physical closeness, although that is a significant part of it. Intimacy for men is about connection, about being known and fully accepted for who they are, without pretense or expectation. It is about being able to open up not just in the physical realm, but in the emotional and spiritual realms as well. Unfortunately, this deep need for intimacy is often overshadowed by the cultural stereotype of the stoic or unemotional man, the one who doesn't need emotional closeness or relational depth. Society often teaches men to suppress their feelings, to hide their vulnerabilities, and to stand strong in a world that often demands performance over connection. Men are told that they should be providers, protectors, and problem solvers, but rarely are they given the permission to show weakness or to desire closeness. This creates a gap where the desire for intimacy becomes something men may not even know how to express, let alone experience. But let me be clear, men need intimacy as much as women do. The difference lies in the way they experience it. For many men, intimacy begins with trust. They need to trust that the woman in their life sees them for who they truly are, not just for what they can provide, not just for their external successes, but for the deeper, more vulnerable parts of themselves. This trust is the cornerstone of intimacy. Without it, often struggle to engage on a deeper level. They may offer physical affection, but the emotional connection they crave remains elusive, because intimacy is not just about being in close proximity, it's about being known. In a healthy relationship, when a man feels respected and intimate his partner, he is free to show his vulnerabilities. He is free to drop his guard, to expose his weaknesses, and to know that his woman will not criticize him for them, but will love him in spite of them. This kind of intimacy is not something that comes easily for many men, but it is something they desperately need. When a man knows he is truly accepted, flaws and all, he is able to thrive in ways that are not possible when he is emotionally closed off or when he feels as though he cannot be authentic. Intimacy, therefore, is not just about physical touch or emotional validation. It is about the acceptance and love that transcends performance. It is about seeing the man for who he truly is, both the strong and the weak parts, and still choosing to love him. This is where respect and intimacy are so deeply intertwined. Respect creates an environment in which intimacy can flourish. And intimacy creates the trust necessary for a man to feel respected. When a woman respects a man, when she honors his efforts, acknowledges his strength, and gives him the dignity he deserves, she opens the door for him to be emotionally vulnerable. And when he feels safe to be vulnerable, he opens himself up to deeper intimacy, and the bond between them strengthens. But when respect is lacking, when a woman diminishes efforts or belittles him in some way, the door to intimacy remains closed. Without respect, a man is forced to put up walls to protect himself from further emotional harm. He may still provide, he may still offer affection, but the connection will be shallow. This truth is critical for both men and women to understand. Women need to understand that a man's desire for respect is not rooted in insecurity or pride, but in the way God designed him. Men need respect as a means of feeling value, not just in a superficial sense, but in a deeply personal and relational sense. They need to know that their worth is recognized, that they are more than just what they do or what they can provide. Respect affirms their identity and reinforces their sense of purpose. Without it, they feel as though they are fighting an uphill battle, trying to prove their worth, never able to relax or feel secure in their role. Men also need to realize that their need for intimacy is not a weakness or something to be ashamed of. The desire to be known and loved for who they truly are is not a flaw, but a reflection of God's design. Just as women are designed to desire emotional closeness, men too are created to long for connection. The difference is often in the way men express that need. A man may not always express his emotional vulnerability in ways that are obvious or that match the emotional engagement a woman might expect. But that doesn't mean the desire for intimacy is absent. The challenge for both men and women is to recognize these needs in each other and to respond in a way that honors the other person's design. A woman must understand that when a man withdraws emotionally or doesn't respond to a situation in the way she expects, it may not be because he doesn't care. It may be because he is processing the situation through his own lens of duty, and he needs respect and trust to feel emotionally connected. On the other hand, a man must understand that intimacy is not simply about providing or protecting. It is about opening up, being vulnerable, and creating a space where the relationship can thrive emotionally. Respect and intimacy, when understood and nurtured, are the foundation upon which a strong, lasting relationship can be built. A man who feels respected will be a man who is confident, who leads with strength, and who opens his heart in trust. A man who feels intimate, known, and loved will be a man who offers more than just his actions. He will give his heart, his soul, and his deepest desires. And in that bond of respect and intimacy, both the man and the woman will find a connection that is more profound, more meaningful, and more fulfilling than anything the world can offer.